our first speaker today is Elodie Chabrol. Elodie is a science communicator and the International Director of Pint of Science. And today, Elodie is going to be talking about how to master networking for science, boost your profile, and build valuable connections. So take it away, Elodie, over to you.
Thank you. So yes, I'm actually putting my timer there. So I want to talk to you about networking and how to boost your profile, because I think it's really, really important in science, and sometimes we forget a bit. So this is a picture of my last science meeting that I've done, and I think one of the places that are really good for that definitely are science meetings. And I'm going to try to give you tips to master the networking, not just during the science meetings, but online, offline, really trying to make the most of it effortlessly, I hope. And I hope you're going to start today, actually. So, you know, at the moment, everyone is asking ChatGPT for everything. So I was like, oh, let's ask ChatGPT, what is networking? And apparently for ChatGPT, networking is putting computer and technology together to share resources and information. And I thought, okay, it's not really that. It's, you know, they are just talking, it's just talking about computers, but actually in real life, it's that. Why would you do networking? You know, often we think we are in the lab, we're seeing collaborators, we are having people in the lab. Why would I do that? But it's actually really good for supporting your later scientific life. It's good to build a community. So community, it's good to find out about workshops, maybe sometimes the backgrounds, because yes, when you are in a lab, you have a lot of collaborators, you might have a lot of people in the lab, but you're often in your own bubble, and you only know about the grants and the workshops and everything that is happening inside this bubble. And sometimes it's really good to just, like, you know, go out of the bubble, meet people, know what's happening. I heard lots of scientists saying that on Twitter, they find out about so many things, you know, like workshops, grants, but also papers that they wouldn't maybe have seen otherwise. So it's really, really important. As a scientist, obviously, it's nice because it can help you to find collaborations. Again, when you have your own little network, sometimes you don't go and look for like other things, other labs, other people. Obviously, it's good to communicate about your projects. Science communication is something that is very asked at the moment, and the bigger network, especially online, the better you can communicate about your projects, and sometimes, you know, find things and find helpful ways of communicating about it as well. And also, if you're in the position of maybe wanting to change jobs, could be in academia, could be out of academia, you can really find jobs, but also people doing this kind of jobs and know what it is. You know, in academia, it's easy, you kind of know what they are. But if you want to leave academia at one point, you might actually want to talk to people about their jobs and what they do and what is their day-to-day life. And networking is really amazing for that. So the rules about networking, I would say there are several, but the three very important ones. The first one is don't network only when you need it. Some people say, oh yeah, you know, I'm looking for a job, so I'm going to start networking now. But it's too late, because when you need it, you need to actually have a network that is built, because otherwise you have no one around you. When you need to find collaborators, if you didn't start networking already before, you're going to have like an empty room or an empty network to talk to. So it's really important that it becomes some kind of a routine to do things whenever you go to meetings, to try to like expand your network and meet new people online. You know, that you try to really have some consistency on going networking online. So this is really important. Also, it's really important to prepare. You know, if you meet people but you don't know what to tell them or how to present yourself, if you go online but you really don't know what to do, then it's not going to be very successful. So the very important thing is to prepare. I'm going to explain quickly how to do that. And also, people tend to think about networking when they need it. But it's a two-way thing. You really have to, sometimes try to help people, put people in contact. Sometimes you hear during meetings that they are looking for someone doing that, or working on some kind of thing. It might not be your thing, it might not be your skill, but you might know something that does it, someone, sorry, that does it. And linking those two people together, first, it's an amazing feeling. And also, it's really a way of giving to the network. So it's not just taking from the network, it's also giving. And I think it's really important because people really appreciate that. So when you think about networking, obviously, often you think about, meetings, so in person, and you think about online, all the social network. And sometimes you really think like it's very, very different. One is really like digital, the other one is in person. You might not see the same people and everything, but actually it's not that different. Most of the time, it's not separated. And actually, to do the best networking you can, it's the best to mix them. So, for example, to prepare, if you go to a meeting, you can prepare it online. You can ask on your social network platforms who is going to that meeting. Often the meetings have hashtags and everything. You can ask people who is going. In science meetings, sometimes you have thousands of people going to the same meeting, and it's really hard to read like all the names, and to be sure you're not missing anyone. Asking online who's going to the meeting, you can actually meet someone that would be outside of your bubble, outside of your radar. You might have not seen that person otherwise, but that person can pop in and say, oh, let's have a coffee, let's have a chat. And you can actually have very meaningful conversation. You can also follow up in real life. You meet someone at a meeting, and if you don't take or don't connect with them online, then it means that it's someone that you connected with, but you can take their email, but it's way more awkward to keep a connection via email, because it means that you need to email something like, oh, how are you, whatever. And at the moment, it's much easier to follow them online, to like their posts, or to discuss on Twitter, for example. So it's really a nice way. So if you meet someone you really like offline, in person, really don't hesitate to add them on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and to follow them. And then you can really keep the conversation. And so it's really important that when you network, you don't see the online and in person separated, but online and in person are really connected, and each of the others is like a tool to help you build better connections. The first very important step, I would say, is to prepare your online profile, because if you meet people in real life and then they follow you on LinkedIn, on Twitter, but you don't have your name, your bio is very empty, people might not actually really follow you, because they might not know what you're doing, or they might not be sure you're actually using social media, so they might not do it at all. If you don't have any of the platform, Twitter or LinkedIn, it's not update your profile, it's create one right now. And it's the same. If you online, you want to reach out to people and you have an empty profile, people might not react to the connection, might not connect with you, because it's just human, it's just, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't know what you do in your life. So I'm not going to click connect, because I don't know, it feels a bit like either it's a bot or it's an empty profile. So it's really an important thing. You don't have to have the most updated profile ever, but at least your name, some pictures, what you do, some keywords about what you do, some bios. On Twitter, maybe a link to the website, or if you don't have a website, it could be to your LinkedIn profile. It could be also to your web lab website. But really try to have an online profile updated, because if you try to connect with someone online, definitely they are not going to react if they don't know who you are, and in person, if they see that, they might not actually add you. So update it now, at least the minimum. And what you can start doing as well is add contacts. So on Twitter, you can follow people. On LinkedIn, you can do two different things. You can follow them. So following means not necessarily being able to send emails or to send messages. And if you contact them, sometimes you have to dig a bit in the profile to contact them and connect with them, then you can message them. The best thing is to give a bit of context. So if you contact someone that you don't know in real life and you haven't met just before, it's nice to say, oh, you know, I'm interested in that, so that's why I'm contacting you, and it would be really nice to have you in my network. In-person networking, so it's really important that you know how to present yourself, how to introduce yourself. So sometimes it's good to have a little pitch about you. So it feels really like marketing. But for example, I had a friend that was doing a PhD in some kind of very specific type of epilepsy, and she was working with a molecule trying to cure epilepsy in rats. And she was always saying like, oh, I'm trying to cure epilepsy with this, like the name of the molecule. And she wasn't saying epilepsy, she was saying like the type of very like jargony type of epilepsy, and people were not responding to that. But then one day she realized, okay, this molecule, you find it in coconut, so maybe I could, you know, try to say I'm curing epilepsy with coconut. And then people are asking you questions, they want to know more. So it's good to have a little pitch about you ready, like just to help the connection, like give people a bit of curiosity about what you do and what you want to what you're researching on and what you want to do with them. Obviously, you don't have one fits all, you know. When you meet someone, you have to think about, what do I want to do with them? Do I want to meet that person for a job? Do I want to meet that person for a collaboration, just because I think they are doing something really cool? And the pitch is not going to be necessarily the same. And if it's a scientist in really your domain, you might have more jargon than if it's a scientist a bit outside of your domain. So really try to have like few ideas of how to introduce yourself, and really like have ways of presenting yourself. When you're in person, don't hesitate to go out of your comfort zone. So often when we go to meetings, we're sticking with the same people, sometimes the lab people, and we're finishing the meeting, we haven't met anyone new. And it's not really the point of the meeting. So I know sometimes it's a bit painful. You don't really want to go out of your comfort zone, but sometimes it's really nice to try to force yourself. You can decide, have a challenge, you know, like I have to meet one new person every day at the conference I'm going to. And again, prepare. So make sure you know who's there. Maybe you prepared it on social media to make sure you can make the most of the networking before you're going to any meeting. So yeah, how to prepare, find out about the kind of person you will meet, decide what you want from the interaction. So really, is it a job? Is it collaboration? Is it technical help? Do you want just to meet someone really cool? And really, if you have some specific people you want to talk to, it's important to try to get information on them before. I'm not saying stalk people before you go to meetings, but a number of people approach you and say, I really like what you do, and then they ask you questions that are openly put on internet, on LinkedIn, or on Twitter. Often people put their resumes, you know, you can know what they do. And when you are approached by someone that has questions about you, but very interesting ones that prove that they looked a bit what you're doing, it's very interesting. When you have people that are asking very like questions that you've answered 1,000 times and it's really openly online or on LinkedIn, you know, you can really just read the resume. You feel a bit like, you know, come on, you could have prepared. So if you want to really have a nice first impression, you can really prepare, make sure you know what people are doing, and go and talk to them about that. Online networking, so make sure you have your bio updated. So I think, yeah, I'm insisting on that, but it's really, really important. Add a note when you're adding someone you don't know yet, and prepare and really gather information before. It's like in-person meeting, and it's really important to kind of like approach them. If you want to ask them about their experience, about their job, try to read as much as possible on those people, especially if it's high profile people. They might not have a lot of time. So if you ask them questions that, you know, the answer is already in their profile, they are going to be a bit annoyed. One thing that is very, very, very important when you're networking is to remember that it's not a Pokemon. You know, you don't have to catch them all. Just some of them, the most important one, and the ones that are definitely gonna going to be important for you. So on LinkedIn, you don't want necessarily to connect with everyone. You want to connect with the right people. So that's why sometimes it takes a bit of time to prepare, to research like who would be interesting to contact, who would be really helping you. It's also important to prepare before and to prepare, I'm going to say that a third time, but to prepare your bio and everything, because when you connect to someone, it's a unique chance and you have it only once. So when you send the connection on LinkedIn, if you're not prepared, if your profile is not updated, the person's going to look at your page and they're not going to follow you, they're not going to connect, and that's done. You're going to have missed this possibility. So instead of trying to add as many people as possible, try to really work on the right ones and try to prepare yourself as much as possible before that. And let's have a practical exercise. So what if you could add like speakers from today on LinkedIn or Twitter? Again, I'm not saying to add everyone, but if you like a talk today, really a lot, add the speakers, add also all the people from Hello Bio, and thank them for organizing this amazing afternoon. But I think this is a practical exercise that you could start already today. Try to add speakers, and even like if you want to say a little word on the talks, it's always nice when you give a talk that someone is giving feedback on it, and it could help you already build your network from today. So if you have other questions, I'm super happy and super willing to answer them. So you can contact us. This is my team. So this is my assistant, my furry assistant. She will probably ignore your message, but I will very be happy to reply.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elodie. Any presentation that's got Pokemon in it is great by me.
Yeah.
So we'll see if any questions come in the chat. You're having some thank yous flooding in, which is great. One of the things that I was really keen to ask you is I speak to a lot of people who I encourage to get out there and network, and for some people they just get this look of complete horror in their eyes because it's just it completely goes against what they're used to, because they might be very introverted and very nervous. So have you got any real like beginners tips for people who are really introverted, who maybe get really anxious about social situations? Have you got any tips for them to get started in building their confidence with networking?
I think preparing is the best way, because if you don't prepare, you might actually not be sure what to say to that person, end up with like, I don't know, trying to be like, oh, hi, I'm doing that. And then, you're going to feel really weird, and you might actually feel not, in control of the situation. And you might actually have really bad feelings about what's happening. So the more you prepare, the better it is. And then when you're going to talk to people, you're going to have this little speech, rehearsed. You're going to know how to introduce yourself. If you look, look for information about the people, then they're going to talk to you about what they do. You might be familiar with it, So preparing, I think, when you're not really liking it and you're not sure, I think it's the best. Because if you don't prepare, you're going to be in a situation that is going to be probably not the best for you, and you might actually not want to continue and not want to do it again because it was really weird. And often you don't think about preparing networking because it's a thing that, it really depends. People might pop in and everything. But if you prepare a little pitch, depending on who you're going to meet, if it's like collaborators or if it's like bosses that you're a bit worried to meet, and, it might really, really help.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. And we've got a couple of comments in the chat. Sam says, thank you, Elodie. I love the idea of having a pitch ready, which again was what we were just saying, and your example of curing epilepsy with coconuts. And Sarah says, I heard if you treat a meeting like a coaching session, no elevator talk needed. I'm so bad at these. Ask questions instead. People love it when you're interested in them. The problem is if you're both asking questions.
Exactly. But that's the thing. If you prepare a bit before, you know what the right questions to ask. So it's not necessarily the questions that are very obvious and it's going to be a bit boring for the person to answer. It's going to be questions that are actually relevant to what they do. And if you talk about something that you've read about them, they might be like, wow, this person has done their job. And actually, they are going to be like, wow, okay, I'm impressed. I'm really happy to answer your question. And they're going to engage way more than if you're like, oh, okay, so who are you? What are you doing? You know, like very generic questions. So that's why preparing, like not stalking, but checking what this person is doing that I really want to meet. So that's why I'm saying it's better to try to select people you want to interact with than trying to catch them all. Because catch them all is going to be very generic. So maybe you can do that as like another level. When you're super confident with networking, you can talk to anyone and whatever, it's fine. But at the very beginning, it's like select the people you want to talk to, really.
I love that. And one of my tricks when I go out networking is I have not got any on today, but I have quite a lot of very bright, colourful, like funky earrings, funky necklaces, like bright colours. And
T-shirts, you know, like
and I find that if you go to a conference and you're wearing something that's a bit of a statement, it can kind of get over the awkwardness. Like it acts like a bit of an icebreaker where people will come up to you and go, oh, I love your shirt, or I love your earrings, or I love your necklace. So that can be a really just nice little icebreaker as well.
Exactly, and be yourself, you know, like if you want to wear this crazy necklace, do it. This crazy jacket or whatever, do it. And actually it's showing who you are. And sometimes it's definitely a conversation starter, which is it's great. I have actually a heart necklace that everyone is already staring at during meetings, and I'm often putting it because I know everyone's going to ask me questions about it, and I know it's going to be a nice icebreaker.
Yeah. Absolutely. I really love dinosaurs, and I've got a lot of necklaces with dinosaurs on, and that just attracts everyone who likes dinosaurs, which is a good group of people. Well, if we don't have any other questions, thank you so much, Elodie. That was absolutely brilliant and full of helpful tips. Feel free to hang around in the chat and share your details so that everyone knows where to find you. And we will move on to our panel. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for organizing this and inviting me. Thank you.
Oh, my absolute pleasure, Elodie. Thank you.